My name is Nicholas Newman. I'm 36 years old. I was born here in Dayton, Ohio. I grew up in a suburb of Dayton, which it was Phillipsburg, Ohio. Um, my mom and dad, my dad worked for a dump trucking company called Hageman's. My mom was a nurse. She was at LPN. Had a pretty decent childhood growing up. I had stuff. It wasn't like I ever went without. They both worked super hard to make sure me and my sisters were taken care of. I always had food in the fridge. I didn't have like a super bad childhood, I don't think. But both my parents were alcoholics of the hopeless variety, but they always maintained a job and they always worked super hard. It's mainly on the weekends they like to drink. And so I grew up watching them drink. And my my whole both sides of my mom and dad's family were a long line of alcoholics. They smoked pot, they partied. I mean, it's what they knew. That's growing up. They so I was introduced to alcohol and pot at a very young age. So growing up, I always thought it was all right. To see them doing it. It seems like everybody's having a good time. And shortly thereafter, I hit my teenage years and I started doing the same things. I would go hang out with my friends, and it started with smoking pot. So I smoked weed. I can remember smoking my first joint. I think I was 11 or 12 when I first smoked pot, and I liked it. And I kept smoking pot. I smoked marijuana all the way up through middle school and high school, and I started drinking when I was probably about 16, 15 or 16. I started drinking beer with my friends. Um, I mean, everybody still. I mean, we were teenagers, man. We all did that stuff, and I'm not gonna make this a big drawn out thing. I'm just gonna tell you the best I can with my experiences with drugs and alcohol. Um, I partied like there was no tomorrow. I lived, I lived for it, and I guess you know the whole thing. My whole life was go to work, pay your bills, and drink on the weekends. But then I started having legal trouble because of it. I got my first DUI when I was 19, and I got arrested. I went to jail. My dad would not bond me out of jail. He wanted me to sit in there so he could, so I could learn that it's terrible. But I ended up getting a slap on the wrist for that. I did like a weekend in jail or something like that. They let me out, and then I had to go to like a 3-day stay thing where I had to learn about drugs and alcohol. But I didn't think I had a problem. Um, yeah, after that, I just kept going on doing what I was doing, drinking, smoking pot, doing all that stuff. And I started working at a place where it was a good place to work. I'm not going to say the name of the place, but most of the guys that I was working with were felons. Most of them been to prison, and one of the guys I worked with, I became super good, like super close friends with. Um, he introduced me to a thing called heroin, and I started snorting it, and I enjoyed it because it just takes it's the most. I think it's the most best high in the world I ever experienced, and it was way more stronger than alcohol and marijuana. So I started snorting it with him, and there before too long, I was putting a needle in my arm, and yeah, I was off to the races after that. I did everything and anything in my power to get the stuff, but I still maintained a job for that 5 years. I don't know how I managed to do that, but I did it. I was a functioning addict. Um, and the girlfriend that I had at the time, she was on it with me. We were both doing it, and we maintained for a while, but it didn't take long. I think over a period of 5 years, we started selling off our stuff, and I ended up losing my job as a direct result of it. And yeah, I ended up selling. Me and her broke up, um, and she ended up going to another state, and I was still here, and I ended up getting thrown back in jail for it. I got arrested 3 times within a year for possession of heroin. It was not fun. But then while I was almost off probation, I went out and got another DUI. because I went out and I was still dabbling with it. I wasn't using it all the time, but I was still kind of, messing with it. And then I got a hold of a thing called fentanyl, and I overdosed out in the middle of a small town where I'm from. And I woke up and there were ambulances and sirens everywhere. It was super embarrassing. And anyhow, I went back to jail again. And the judge was like, well, since you've already almost completed probation, I'm just going to go ahead and terminate your probation. And I'm going to let you deal with this DUI. So I ended up getting on probation. I ended up completing that and got off of it. And then I finally kicked heroin, and I did it without Subutex or Suboxone. I did it without methadone. I actually did it with alcohol, which is kind of weird because I just traded one drug for another. But in my case, it worked. I drank like there was no tomorrow. Lots of whiskey and lots of whiskey, man. Like I drank it until I couldn't, to where I wouldn't want to do heroin anymore. So I ended up getting off of it, and I kind of got my life back together a little, but I was still drinking. And then a friend of mine introduced me to a thing called crystal meth. Started doing crystal meth, not all the time, but I would dabble in it. But I was still drinking a lot. And I think I was like, how old was I? I was 28 when I finally got off probation for that. So just about 2 years ago, I got popped for crystal meth, and I just got off probation for it. I just completed ILC, and I crystal meth is a very terrible drug. It just destroys everything, man. It destroyed my life so bad, and it destroyed like all these relationships with people I really cared about. Some of them I can't even get back, and I've tried to make amends to a few of them, and the one I tried to make amends to just won't even speak to me. It's horrible, man, but I put people through a lot of hell, and I don't really know uh I don't really know what I'm supposed to do about it, but I've worked the 12 steps of AA, and I've made amends to these people the best I can. And I don't know how to I don't know, man. I just got to take care of me, I guess. But for the past 10 months I've had clean here at Good Shepherd. My whole life has changed, and I would never go back to any of what I was doing before. But, I started using drugs at 11 years old, man, all the way up until, 10 months ago, I finally quit and got clean. And I don't think I could have done it without Good Shepherd and my sponsor. So I don't know exactly what all else to say. I mean, this is basically it. My life is good, and I actually like my life sober, man. I think it's way better on this side than it ever was when I was drinking and drugging, man. It's just so much easier. And I think I prayed to God a lot, man. And I think he's blessed me with a lot of amazing people in my life now, which make up for the relationships that I've lost in the past. And I don't I'm no good at speaking, so I think this is where I'm going to end this, and I'm just going to continue on the path of sobriety. And what's crazy is when you go to these meetings and you hear these people speak, it offers so much hope. And you see these people when you go into these rooms laughing, and you're like, what do they got, man? What is it? Because they say it's based on attraction rather than promotion. And you see these people who've got years and years sober, and they talk about, the miracles and all the stuff in recovery that you gain, and the relationships, and the cars, and the houses, and the wives, and that stuff looks pretty good to me. And yeah, I don't think I'll ever go back to using it. Don't Nothing about it is any good for anybody, and it ultimately just leads to jails, institutions, and death. And I like it out here much better. And I think being a productive member of society is the absolute way to go. And with that, that's all I'm going to say.